is not Word Wednesday. It is Truth Tuesday. And I hope you're excited because we're still going to be getting in the Word even though it isn't Word Wednesday. But today we're going to be talking about why Christ is sufficient. And if you have ever wondered what makes Christ's death so important besides the fact that he came back to life, and it wasn't the fact that it hurt really, really bad, or the fact that it took hours on hours on hours of him standing, or not standing, hanging on the cross. That's not why his death was so important, but his death was so important because of his life. If you think about that, his death was so important because of his life, because of the perfect life he lived. His death was the climax of his life because he lived a perfect life. The verse Hebrews 5:9 says, "And being made perfect, he became the source of eternal salvation to all who obey him." And that first part, and being made perfect. His whole life, he lived a perfect life, and that's what separates us from God, is the fact that we can't even live half there's nothing that we can do to get close to a perfect life. And it's so important that we realize that, because once we realize that, we realize how important Christ's death is. Again, that's what makes it so important, is the fact that he lived a perfect life. And that's why he's sufficient, because when we are weak, he is strong. There's so many songs because of the verse, and that phrase is so popular. You maybe have it on your fridge. I mean, I don't want to say I hope not, but you can get a better verse than that. But nah, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. But what this means for us is, because of all of our weaknesses. And when I say weaknesses, this can mean people, when we get insulted, when we have hardships, when we're anxious, because isn't that a common thing nowadays, when we're anxious because there's so many things going on in our life. But there were so many things going on in Jesus' life, but he lived a perfect life. And I want you to pay attention to the fact that there is a stark contrast between us and God. There is nothing that we can do to earn his favor, but the fact that he still gives it to us and gives us this grace. That's what makes our life so fulfilling, is because when he exemplifies strength, his omniscience, his omnipresence, his omnipotence, when he exemplifies all those things, all we are here to do is live for him. But it's difficult at times. It's not, we can do it because he helps us, but we are weak nonetheless. We can't live knowing that, or feeling that we can control everything ourselves and that we can do everything on our own, because we are not sufficient, but Christ is. And this should give you a newfound peace if you haven't even thought of this before. If you thought that you had to try to follow God, but you had to jump through hoops on your own, but say the hoop was 100 feet in the sky, but you didn't have a jetpack, so you couldn't get to the hoop in the sky, but God gave you a jetpack so you can. It's a crazy example. Maybe you're like 8 years old and you really like that example. But God is going to help us get to where we need to be according to his will. That's not saying financially, nothing like that. But he is going to make us sufficient in him. Christ is sufficient, so we can be made sufficient because of that. And this brings me so much peace, so much relief, but it's also convicting, because it's like, well, now that we know that we can't do it on our own, are we relying on him, or are we relying on ourselves still? Are you wasting time relying on yourself? Because if you think about it, you're wasting time. All the moments you worry, you give into pride, don't be doing all that. Don't be doing all that. Give in to the fact that he is sufficient and we are not. It should be humbling, and that's a good thing. Anything that's humbling is usually a good thing. There are rarely anything, I would even go as far to say there's never anything that's bad when we are humbled. No bad outcomes when we are humbled. So be humbled and be encouraged and be convicted today, because Christ is sufficient when we are not. And I'm very thankful that we have a Creator that is sufficient, because we'll never be sufficient. But that's okay. We got him.